Oxford from the inside. The good, the bad, but always the truth.
Hey guys, welcome to Oxford from the Inside, the good, the bad, but always the truth. Today we're joined with Kyri. Would you like to introduce yourself?
Hi, I'm Kyri. I'm studying Biomedical Sciences at Trinity, uh, and I've just finished my first year, going into my second year.
Oh, studying Trinity, that sounds
Yeah,
interesting to
yeah.
me. uh, I'm only teasing, it's all right. So today we're going to be talking about writing a personal statement for biomedical sciences. So I guess we'll start off with what are the differences roughly between biomedical sciences, biology versus medicine versus biochem personal statements, and what are the subtle differences between those disciplines when it
Yeah,
comes to personal statement?
yeah. So with all those subjects, there's quite a lot of overlap between them, but biomedical science is very specific towards human biology. So looking at physiology, like your heart, your lungs, as well as kind of molecular biology, whereas medicine would have that as well. So for example, we share like nearly half of our lectures with medics, but they have more of a patient interaction. So how does this link to the patients? What's the clinical application of this? And biology would have overlap as well, but more focused on, it's a lot more broader. So you have ecology in there, um, plant biology,
Mm.
animal biology, and what was the last one? Biochemistry as well. Yeah. So biochemistry, again, another huge overlap. We shared like nearly half our lectures with them as well, but they don't have a lot of physiology in there at all, or neuroscience. So yeah, that would be the
So,
difference.
and so in terms of like the personal statement, what what does that lead to then? If you're making a biomedical sciences personal statement, what topics does that cover? That makes sense. Like, what topics are relevant to the biomedical science course at Oxford that you can then include in your personal statement?
Okay, so at Oxford, the first year is actually really broad. You've got um, genes, so genetics, molecules, looking at metabolism, um, genes, molecules, body, so your heart, lungs, cells, looking at molecular biology, and brain and behavior. So you've got neuroscience, looking at the brain, psychology, maths, statistics, chemistry, and physics. So anything in that
Mm.
kind of range you want to try and include. And then also like what interests you as well. So as
Mm.
much as it's good to include all those points, like everything that the Oxford course offers, you want to make sure that it's actually interesting to you because you
Mm.
might get asked that in in your interview. So
Mm.
yeah.
Yeah, I guess also would you say I mean I imagine the viewers listening to this has probably heard this loads of times, but fundamentally the personal statement, would you agree, is to show how curious you are about the subject for all personal statements.
Yeah, definitely. Like what kind of interest you, um, where did it begin? Because that usually forms like a lot of the kind of initial discussion in the interview as well. They might read something in your personal statement and be like, oh, okay, I see you went to this immunology exhibition. Can you tell me more about that? What
Mm.
so yeah. So you want to make sure it's genuine because then that will
Yeah.
show in the interview.
And in terms of like just anyone listening for like that kind of interview, that's not representative for all interviews for
Mm.
different subjects. Just like a quickly get that out there. Um, what else was I going to say? So I want to ask you, how is biomed interdisciplinary? And firstly, what does interdisciplinary mean?
Okay,
Um,
so interdisciplinary is the fact that there's many different disciplines in the first year. So it's even though biomedical science is a very specific degree, looking at just human biology, there's so many options to choose. And in your first year, you'll just be given everyone will be doing studying the same modules. So you're going to have a whole module on chemistry, a whole one on physics, one on maths, one on psychology, neuroscience, physiology, genetics, So you're kind of having like a little bit of everything in your first year. So that's why that's something quite specific to Oxford as well. Because speaking to other students that have done biomedical sciences, I've got a friend in Manchester. She doesn't really do any neuroscience or psychology. Hers is more, I guess, more like genetics and immunology and that kind of thing. So it's a lot broader, I think, Oxford is. Yeah.
So would you say that if you're applying for Oxford specifically for biomedical sciences, then it's you should take into account what you learn in the course, and then like use your personal statement. You use the course as a reference for when you're writing a personal statement. So like looking at all of these different disciplines that you learn in biomedical sciences, like as you said, physiology, psychology, neuroscience, and then how would you use these disciplines to then include in your personal statement? Would you say it's about the interest thing again?
Yeah, so you kind of have like that range of options to choose from. And then so like I think they appreciate that a lot of people haven't studied any neuroscience or psychology before, so that would be new to them. So if you don't include those two in your personal statement, that's fine. I didn't, because I didn't really know a lot about that as well. But I think, yeah, so trying to match your interests with what's studied in first year would definitely help. And show that you've like looked at the course and said, okay, this is the course for me because I want to have quite a broad first year because I have loads of interests. But then also kind of show maybe what specific ones you're interested in.
I think I know for chemistry at least, showing specifically what part of chemistry that interests you and going into a little bit of detail about that, rather than being vague about that you're interested in organic chemistry, but being more specific about what particular part really helps. And I can imagine I know if you pick out a particular part of like genetics that you're really interested in, it will shows that shows loads of things. It shows that you've done the research, you've differentiated between all the things around this field, and you're saying I like this part, and that shows a lot without even having to say much. Just the fact that you've picked out this one thing, for sure. I definitely agree that you have to be like specific. I also think that I don't know how many people. I mean, yes, it's obvious to us because we study our degrees for a few years now. But I think the personal statement is not about like they're trying. The personal statement is obviously one of the tools that they're trying to distinguish between applicants, and they don't necessarily want applicants who are just very clever. I don't think, in my opinion, they want, because no matter in my opinion, no matter how clever you are, if you don't find, in this case, biomedical sciences really interesting, you're not going to spend 40 hours doing it every week and week after week. Even you could be like the cleverest person in the world, if you don't find it interesting, why would you put out those 40 hours a week? And I don't know if you agree, but with the personal statement, is trying to convince the admissions tutors, that you are that curious and have that inquisition for this subject, that you are actually going to want to spend 40 hours a week learning about this, and that's probably more valuable than how clever you are. I know, would you agree to that personal statement is showing that
definitely.
You're dedicated to the subject?
Yeah, so kind of they want to see that you'll be motivated to learn, and not just. So in my personal statement as well, I kind of did a tiny bit of what I potentially might want to do in the future, or an area of biomedical science that has potential for a new discovery. So they want to see what could motivate you, what especially the fact that there are so many different modules, some of them which you probably won't like I really didn't like the physics module, but so what's gonna keep you interested.
What was the thing that you talked about in your personal statement that you were saying?
I looked at, so I went to this exhibition at the Science Museum in London, and it was called Superbugs, and I actually didn't realize that there was only one biotic that's made it to market in the past 30 years. And so there's this big thing on like antibiotic resistance, which I guess you've seen everywhere in like hospitals and stuff. And they're trying to find new ways to target bacterial infections without antibiotics. So the new thing they're looking at is these little kind of star peptides that latch onto bacteria and kind of break the cell wall. So it's just trying to look at new innovative methods to target antibacterial resistance.
That sounds really cool. You caught my interest because like I could I could try to get into that through chemistry. I mean, I have to learn I'd have to learn loads of biology for sure. But yeah, no, that sounds really, and like really like altruistic as well. Because you're obviously like, whoever finds the alternative to antibiotics will be doing all of us a massive favor. Sure.
Yeah, and there's definitely like a lot of focus on experiments and research in the course as well. So another thing to add to your personal statement would be something, show that you're kind of researching about an area that interests you, that maybe you're reading up on journals like on PubMed or something, looking at experiments. And
I guess also like would you agree, I don't know if you did this as well, but when you like come across something that you found interesting and you're writing in your personal statement, writing what you did afterwards, like after you found that, if you like what did that interesting thing propel you to do on like afterwards, and then you can like sort of write like a little like story of like these different things that you did because of what you found out before. So like, I don't know, from your A level, this part of chemistry was like really interesting to you, then that made you go on to read further about it, and you found out all these other things, and you went further about that, things like that. Which shows how you've continued to keep going deep and deep into your subject, and then obviously shows how interested you are.
Yeah, definitely. And like in open days as well, when I was speaking to my tutors in biomedical science, they also say like, we don't like it when you just say, okay, I read this book, I did this thing. They want to see like what that led you to do. What did you think about it? You could even say something, you can critique it and say, I read this book, however, I didn't really find this bit that accurate or something. So it's about
I guess with criticism though, always being careful that
that's true.
Like,
don't want to criticize their book or something like realize
they were my friend actually after they did their interview, during the interview they said, it was a maths interview, they said that we're going a bit off topic, but they said how like this one branch of maths is like not their particular favorite. And then they asked the tutor afterwards, like, "Oh, what's your specialty?" And it was that branch of maths. He did get in. It probably wasn't because of that.
Okay. You never know. I don't know.
No, he reapplied. He reapplied, so it all went well. It probably wasn't because of that, but
and they say that the questions don't make up their judgment of you. So like questions are outside the interview time. So that's very important to that conversation wasn't a part of the interview. It's just, but as like, even though you know that shouldn't be a factor of the interview, it just doesn't feel that great that you sort of like just sort of like, oh yeah, what you researching I don't like, but good times. But if you're if you're in your personal statement, if you're critiquing by like a research paper or something, making sure that you don't come across as arrogant is a good. I mean, maybe being a bit skeptical of how you critique it, just like showing how you could also be wrong in your critique could be a humble thing to do, in my opinion. Just because there is a fear that admissions tutor reading it and being like, oh, they've made quite a big claim here in their criticism, and I know you don't want to make any too big of a claims with little evidence, in my opinion. But that's not what makes a good scientist, really. You don't. You need to look at the evidence and.
Exactly. So what made you first interested in biomedical sciences? Like, I personally don't even know how you'd come across the degree. So yeah, what made you first interested?
Cool. Yeah, it's definitely during like biology A level. I kind of when I was thinking, I wasn't actually sure on what degree I wanted to do, so I kind of went through my subjects, opened up my biology A level textbook, and like highlighted all the topics that I was really interested in. And I was like, this is all kind of human biology. And I'd say specifically the one topic I really liked was epigenetics. So looking at how environmental factors can cause heritable changes in your genotype without actually affecting the DNA bases. I thought that was really cool. I was like, the fact that you can potentially pass something on that's been changed by your environment. So I was like, whoa, that's cool. And then like what I said before, like what you said before was, okay, you found this interesting. What did that lead you to do? So looking at epigenetics, I did a lot of kind of research in journals, looking at how that could be used in cancer therapies and the new types of trials that are going on in that area. So yeah.
Nice. No, that sounds really interesting. And like, yeah, I guess the like climate change and like coming up, like thing, and like I know, yeah, climate change coming up and like people living in like cities with like high pollution, then like this kind of like evidence, like kind of how the environment's changing our health. Is like going to be becoming more and more important in the future for sure. For for like writing, like making a biomedical sciences application, do you need any like work experience or lab experience?
No, definitely not. I didn't have any work experience or lab experience. And I think that's kind of what worried me a lot, was that especially during interviews when I was talking to the other applicants as well, I think all of them pretty much had like this fancy lab experience working abroad in somewhere. And I thought, oh, I didn't have any of that. But I think it's more, any kind of experience is good as long as you can relate it to biomedical science. So whether you've had like a part-time job or something, how does that link, maybe not to biomedical science, but how does that link to being a good scientist? So you could say, or in any of your A levels, you could say, so for example, during art, I had that taught me to have really fine attention to detail. And that's useful in histology, where you're looking down a microscope, looking at a cell, and you have to kind of replicate what you see. That's essentially art as well. So there's lots of things that you can relate to biomedical science, to the course. And that will show the tutors just as well, like that would be just as good as having lab experience.
I mean even further, if you could also show how like these experiences that you had like with art, how that would also make you enjoy doing biomedical sciences, would also like help as well for sure. Like showing that you're skilled, but also you're going to enjoy doing this. But I think if people make like a talking about extracurriculars to how they're related to their degree, you're going to have to. I think you're probably going to have to make a really strong argument for how relatable it is to the degree, because there's to an extent they might say that it sounds like you're very good at these things that aren't biomedical science, that aren't biomedical science based, but how does that relate to biomedical science? And then so you have to provide a strong argument that this is actually very useful for the degree. Do you see what I'm saying?
Definitely.
But yeah, I think the one you said about art and I can't pronounce it, the microscope thing, you know what I'm talking
histology.
That's like, that sounds really good to me. That sounds really like, I can see how they'll be like, oh yeah. So anything else exciting in the field of biomedical sciences? So like people listening, they'll be like, oh yeah, that sounds pretty cool. I'm going to look into that for their personal statement.
So I guess at the time when I was writing my personal statement, something exciting in the field was about the CRISPR-Cas9 gene editing. So there was this scientist that edited these embryos to make them immune resistant to HIV, which has never been done before in humans. It's been done in like plants and in some animals, but it was kind of illegal to do it on humans, but he kind of did it anyway in secret. But that was like a big exciting thing that happened in biomedical science. So I think it's good to try and include something like that in your personal statement, something kind of relevant as well. I think they even mention that on their website, that they have like relevant interests in the field of biomedical science. So
oh wow, nice. That sounds really cool. I mean, like, it sounds also like ethically like awful, but because of all like because of like all the mistakes that could have come out of it. It's like how we discovered like smallpox, the antibody, like if you have cowpox first.
Oh yeah.
And how he rubbed the part, like the smallpox pus into someone, but they'll
he did it into his own children as well.
His own children.
Yeah, it was like a 9-month-old baby. Just yeah.
Oh no, you don't want to. You don't. It actually is ethics any? Does that take any part in biomedical sciences degree?
Not. I know, like in medicine that they have like specific lectures on ethics, whereas we don't really have that. But not to say that you should just go running around like injecting babies with smallpox, but I mean cowpox, because that's. I mean, they want to see that you're a good scientist, and that means, like, I guess there is an element of respecting others and life as well.
So would you say, talking about the ethics of biomedical sciences, that would be not as relevant to include in a personal statement?
Yeah, I'd say probably not as relevant. They're more kind of focused on like research and experimental studies and
Damn. As you could have we could have a podcast about if that's right or wrong. We could definitely do that. But anyways, coming back to the personal statement. So yeah, give us a rundown of what A levels you did, and how did you use can you use your A levels content for biomedical science personal statement? Because I guess like obviously there isn't an A level for biomedical sciences, so like how do you use your A levels for the personal statement if you can?
So the A levels I did was maths, further maths, biology, economics, Greek and Spanish, so quite a broad range there. But before we carry, you're a native speaker though, hence the extra A levels. Like not everyone has that many A levels. No, definitely not.
Yeah, I only had 3, and I got an A in chemistry, and I'm doing chemistry, so it's all good. Don't worry. Yeah, but yeah, as you were saying,
and I didn't actually do chemistry, and I think there's only one other person in our cohort that hasn't done chemistry. It's quite a small cohort, like 40 people, but so that was something I was worried about at the time as well, is that my A levels aren't specific to this degree that much. But then, as I'll say now, like you can kind of relate any subject to biomedical science. There's probably something in there. So because we have a whole module on maths and statistics, I related a lot of like further maths and maths, especially the statistics side, to biomedical science, looking at the importance of statistics and analysis in trials. So for example, is this drug statistically different? Statistically significantly.
I know what you
mean. Then this type of drug. So those are the kind of methods you'd use. Skills as well. So for example, there's questions in maths that you need to pull together lots of different topics. So maybe there might be, you need to integrate this part, but then you need to do some trigonometry here and like do something else there. So I kind of talked about how that sometimes you need to pull seemingly unrelated topics together to solve a challenging problem. And so that links to biomedical science in that you're never really just looking at something in isolation. You have to consider all the different factors around something that to kind of solve, okay, how can this drug work against this bacterium or something?
Nice. Wow, that's pretty cool. Damn. Yeah, especially like, and also like I think like I know like doing research, like science is supposed to work together, right? And the fact that you don't do chemistry, but you've done like further maths, like you bring something that the others don't, like, because the statistics is such a massive part in, like, I imagine, like, yeah, as you said, like for like making new drugs and like, I know, and seeing like, yeah, like if this like how statistically, like which ones are better and things like that, and like maths is just sort of very useful in like all areas of science. The fact that you've got that under your belt with the further maths is like, I can imagine being like, very useful and very relevant for your personal statement and the degree. So
Another
last,
thing, oh,
yeah,
sorry. Oh, yeah, I was going to say, another thing to add in is that there's no specific subject you need to study for biomedical science. On the website, they say you need to have any two from biology, chemistry, physics, and maths. But all those four subjects, biology, chemistry, physics, and maths, are going to be in your first year. So say if you've done chemistry and biology and physics, but not maths, you could potentially add something in your personal statement to say, okay, I'm going to, like, yeah, I know I haven't done maths, but I will like research into like, there's this book that I've been reading, or maybe something to do that you're going to prepare yourself for this course specifically, if you don't have the maybe the A levels. Yeah,
sounds like a good point as well. You could definitely writing a personal statement that you're going to look into the A levels that you don't have that are relevant to the course.
Yeah, so because I didn't do chemistry, I was looking into kind of all the I was looking at the A level syllabus and all the topics in organic chemistry, and I was reading around that. So just to show that, I haven't done the A level, but I'm still preparing.
What did you think of organic chemistry?
It's not too bad actually. I see how it links. I'd say the part on like optical isomerism. Like that was a bit confusing. But
that was pretty confusing. With like the hands, like how how like electrical but different.
Yeah. But no, it is interesting. Yeah, I did enjoy looking at it.
Nice. It's cool that you know that. Like, you know, the fact that you can recall optical isomerism, but you didn't do the A level was pretty impressive. So to finish it off, is there any books that you recommend to read and writing biomedical sciences? I imagine the books probably vary a lot because depending on the different disciplines you look into. But yeah, carry on.
Yeah, true. So you don't there was like loads of humongous like textbooks like this thick that I was thinking of reading to put in your personal statement, but yeah, that's definitely not necessary. But on the Oxford website, I think they have a recommended reading list.
Nice.
And they've actually grouped them according to different topics. So these are the ones they're recommended for psychology, for a bit of maths, for immunology, and so I'd say maybe just picking one, just to kind of read around. So I looked in. The book I read was The Beautiful Cure, which was about immunology, and that was really interesting. And we talked about that in the interview as well. So
nice.
I'd say, just picking maybe one or two books would be a good way to show interest in the subject, or looking at a journal or a magazine like New Scientist, or like Cell or something. Yeah.
But then again, not saying that you read it and then moving on. But what you said before about choosing a part that you found interesting, saying why you found it interesting, and then maybe saying what you did after you came across this. Did you do any further research and stuff?
Yeah, definitely.
Nice. It sounds like we've gone through a very comprehensive description of what you can do for biomedical science personal statement. I wanted to just for anyone who's listening, quickly go over the topics that you learn, the disciplines that you go over first year, just so that if they're like jotting this down, they could know what things to look into. So the disciplines that you go over in biomedical sciences, am I right in saying it's genetics, biochemistry, body physiology, psychology, neuroscience, cells? Was that
cells?
Yeah, cells? Is it just cells?
Just cells,
Just cells. Damn. Is that everything? Like, anything else? Is there any maths?
Maths and statistics, chemistry and physics, and molecules, so looking at molecular structure of like proteins,
Yeah.
membranes, metabolism.
Mm.
Yeah, I think that covers quite a lot.
Do you do you cover nutrition? I'm just curious.
No, not well. What's like?
So yeah, because you do a lot of exercise. Do you
Uh,
know do you cover diet or nutrition in biomedical sciences at all?
I think there is an option within like second and third year potentially, but I don't think it will be like that relevant to nutrition. It's more of like how something's broken down, where does it go, looking at the cycles and pathways.
So there's nothing about like is there anything about like type like diabetes or
Oh no, yeah. So we look at diabetes and
mhm.
A lot of. I think definitely second year there's an option on endocrinology, so looking at hormones and how that can be affected by diet and exercise, looking at diabetes. So I think that's within endocrinology.
So I think this could be quite relevant to biomedical sciences. So I've watched two documentaries very recently. I haven't finished the second one to be fair, but I've watched it in the past. There's one called Fat Fiction, and that was on Amazon Prime, and the other one, What the Health, on Netflix. They're both about diet and type 2 diabetes. They're both, a lot of it's about America, and like the American health and type 2 diabetes, their epidemic. Epidemic the right word? I'm not sure. So Fat Fiction said, if you've got type 2 diabetes and you want to reverse it, you should have a low carb diet, and that is like high. Like fat isn't necessarily bad for you; it is the carbs. Now it's said by loads of researchers and scientists, etc. Then I watched What the Health directly afterwards, right? And loads of scientists and dietitians and researchers said, "Oh, don't get me started on this. It's the carbs and sugar is not bad for you. It is the animal fat and the fats that causes type 2 diabetes." So is that like, would talking about that be relevant to like biomedical sciences? Like if you were to research into that in a
I think there's definitely a way of linking that. I mean, first that does show like how you can manipulate statistics and like kind of there's a lot of different views in science, that a lot of theories actually that people have, because no one necessarily knows for sure this causes like but I watched like this, I don't know if it's a documentary or more like a lecture called like The Bitter Truth about sugar and how sugar's actually worse for you than alcohol. Well, sugar, like fructose specifically, which is found in fruit, naturally in fruit, but they use it a lot in the industry as like high fructose corn syrup. I don't know if you've heard of that before. So it's like a type of sweetener that uses 50% fructose. No, about 80% fructose or something, like a really high range of fructose that normally isn't found naturally. And the way that fructose is metabolized by your liver is that it actually gets converted to fat and stored. It's stored as fat, whereas glucose is broken down, much more likely to be broken down into energy than stored as fat. And looking at the effects fructose has, it causes fatty liver disease, and a bunch of other kind of problems that I forgot that are exactly the same as what alcohol does to you. But the only reason that you don't give alcohol to babies or something, or to children, is that alcohol is also metabolized by your brain. So that's why you feel drunk, because it's metabolized in your brain, whereas fructose is all metabolized in your liver. But the effects of, if you take away the behavioral effects of like feeling intoxicated or something, then they do the exact same, they have the same consequences for you.
Whoa. That's mad. I mean, it could also be not true, but you could be skeptical about everything. I'm not just dissing on it.
No, but they showed like the pathway of how fructose gets metabolized. So it's absorbed here, it's broken down into these. And the end products were like the same as alcohol or something.
Whoa, okay.
Something along those lines.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
So there's definitely, you can definitely link that to biomedical science if you look at the metabolism of something. Yeah.
I can imagine you can write about your personal statement about that for sure.
Yeah.
A little bit of the personal statement. Yeah, nice. Wow. So as a throw off question, which one do you believe? If you want to lose weight, do you go low carb diet and almost keto, or do you go no fat and no animal fat?
I'd say there's a lot more. I'd say I'm more leaning towards the kind of sugar is bad for you. I'd say, just because we haven't had access to that much sugar in evolution, and it's not, something we're kind of adapted to. The rate at the amount of which we're consuming is just like far beyond what we can handle. And I'd say,
interesting.
Where
would you say that through evolution though, were we made to like be omnivores or carnivores? Like our teeth look quite similar to cows, no? Do you see what I'm saying?
Oh, yeah. So yeah, there's a lot of this. It's quite interesting because it's like there's the whole kind of like debate on, we have canines, but then the biggest canines in the world belong to, is it the rhinoceros or the hippopotamus, or one of those? And they're actually a herbivore, so that doesn't make. Why do they have the biggest canines if they don't eat meat? But it is interesting.
Yeah, interesting stuff. Yeah, as well. I won't picking apart your brain to its absolute max. We've gone through a lot of interesting topics, and we went through the list of the disciplines that are in biomedical sciences. So a lot of content for people to go and research about to include their personal statement. For sure. Yeah. And go for you first, Con.
Oh, okay. I say another thing you could also do is look at the modules for second year, because even then they get more specific. So there's an option that I'm going to choose, that I'm going to be studying in a few weeks, called Sleep and Circadian Neuroscience. So looking at your circadian rhythm, how, why do we sleep? Like, what is the purpose of it? Because being unconscious for 8 hours a day just doesn't seem like a good evolutionary trait to have, because you can get like attacked or something. So I'd say you could even look at your options for second year and say, oh, okay, I'm excited to study this, or read a book about one of those options. So the one I'm reading is actually called Why We Sleep.
Classic.
In my bag. Yeah. So that's really interesting. It's an easy read as well. Like you don't need a lot of background in science to understand it. So.
First few pages of that, how did you feel?
Oh, I found that I like the bit when he was like, oh, have you read it too?
I haven't finished it. I read like a few chapters. But I remember the first few pages were quite heavy.
Yeah. I like the bit when he was like, if you fall asleep reading this, I'd actually be like, what was it? I'd be honored if you fall asleep reading my book, because I know that's beneficial. I like the part as well when they tested loads of different drugs on spiders and looked at how they formed their webs. And it was like, this is like a spider's web on amphetamine, this is it on LSD, cocaine, and then when it was on caffeine, it was like completely just like it was like 3 lines and that was it. I was like, wow, okay.
Like after I read that book, I'm placeboed forever. So I have to always have 8 hours sleep, or like if I have less than 8 hours sleep, I'm just like, oh yeah, but that book said I won't be able to function today. Would you know, I can't function anymore.
It's dangerous, because it's like you might be stressed about going to sleep, so you're like, okay, let me read why it's important, and then that makes you even more stress. Which
exactly, yeah. There's one of those ones where like, oh yeah, my ignorance before was quite bliss, and now you know too much. It's just dangerous book to read, but good, very good. I haven't finished it, but it's an international bestseller, I think. And it's very easy to read. I think so. So I think that's all that we've got time for today. We've went through a lot of stuff. Interesting.
I enjoyed it. Thank you for having me.
Thank you for being here. And thanks for the viewers for listening or watching, whether it's on your podcasting platforms or YouTube or IGTV. Make sure you follow us on Instagram, and those other platforms, Alex from the Inside. We're also on Twitter if you prefer getting notified by our episodes on that as well. And and we'll see you guys next time. Thanks again, Kyri. And
Thank you.
all right, see you guys next
See
time.
you.